My great friend Brian Kilmeade, Fox and Friends co-host, host of One Nation with Brian Kilmeade, host of the Brian Kilmeade radio show. Right. You were going at it this morning. It was great fun.
I listened. I learned. I was taking notes during your appearance.
I know. Likewise. No, you raised some important questions. I was just followed up on the ruble. I mean, I'm kind of depressed to see the ruble coming back because that tells me we are not closing them down financially. And the other thing, you raised this point on the radio this morning. We, the U.S. Treasury, the Biden administration Treasury, has allowed our banks, in this case J.P. Morgan, to complete the payment of Russian interest on their sovereign debt. Now, I don't know why that is. I want them to go bankrupt. That's the best thing in the world.
This is your area. What people have told me is that, well, if Russia can't pay their bills, and they can't, they don't have the revenue, and if J.P. Morgan didn't cover their debt, their butts, then the other people that they're in debt to fail because Russia couldn't pay them out. So you sustain everything. I guess it's that 2008, everything crashed unless we come up with TARP axiom that comes up to. So the other thing that I thought was fascinating this morning is that the Russians turn around and go, yeah, if you want my oil, I need it in rubles. And Germany says, hey, you know what? I'm not doing that. So they're going to stare each other down because, you know, Russia wants their best customer, and Germany needs, for currently, even though they're frantically, to their great credit, they're frantically trying to supplant Russia as their supplier. So they go over the UAE and everything else.
Yes, but, you know, first of all, on these sovereign debt payments, the amount of debt is not that big a deal. Now, it is true some banks might suffer, but they could be covered.
Suck it up, right.
Right.
Believe me, I'm not making excuses. I'm abhorred by this.
They could be covered by their own central banks or something. This is a wartime issue. It's not that big a deal. And I'm so tired of us helping Russia in any way, shape, or form. The other point is, okay, the Europeans, the Germans in particular, are saying to the Russians, we are going to pay you in euros, not rubles. Okay, yeah, but I don't want them to pay them in anything.
I know.
Okay,
because they'll tell you it's winter. We have no other alternative. We can get another liner. We can put a liner in our blazers, you know, and be a little bit and sleep in them. But right now, I mean, we should have seen this coming. You guys said this from day one. Famously, the former president came out and looked across and goes, why am I protecting you if you're going to go in bed with this Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, and you're still buying oil and gas from them? And they thought, what a Neanderthal that Donald Trump is. And he ends up being 100% right.
Of course, he was 100% right. Holman Jenkins of the Wall Street Journal has said for many weeks, and I have echoed this, regarding these European payments for Russian oil, don't give them I don't care whether you're giving them euros or anything. Put it in an escrow account so the Russians can't get it.
What if they stop giving it to you then?
And then we will see. Let's call their bluff. We never call their bluff. We're also intimidated by Vladimir Putin. You know, he rattles our cage. So let's see how he would do on that. And if he wants to cut off the oil, then Joe Biden, of course, could say, well, we're going to give you the permits to drill more oil and gas and pipeline it. That's another different subject, but it's a related matter. I'm just saying the rising ruble tells me in Russian terms, financially, they're no worse than they were when this thing started. And that is not supposed to be the position they're in. When the ruble was crashing to 140 or so, and it was worthless, I love that. I love that because I'm rooting for the Ukrainians. And, Brian...
Do you blame the Chinese for that? Do you blame the Indians? Do you blame South Africa?
No.
The whole Middle East for continuing to deal with them?
No.
They should be boycotting, too.
They should. I agree with you on that. It isn't clear to me how much they're really doing, incidentally. But basically, I blame, you know, these are homegrown problems. Taking out a third of our strategic petroleum reserves, which damages U.S. security in the case there's a war in the Middle East and nobody can get any oil. That's not the answer. The answer is drilling for more oil and gas. The answer is more pipelines. Biden won't go there. He's playing into Putin's hands by not doing that. I'm just saying, let's be tougher. The sanctions never hit their energy companies. The sanctions never hit their energy banks. There were never secondary sanctions, sanctions on banks to do any business with the Russian banks. We never did any of that stuff. And so the ruble is rising again, okay? The Ukrainians, my God, they've been fabulous, right? They have been outdone everyone's They are brave, gritty, courageous people. Why aren't we helping them fully with our financing?
There's a few things going on. One, just on what Russia's doing. Evidently, they prepared their rainy day fund with $600 billion. And when MasterCard and Visa and American Express said we're not doing this anymore, they were prepared. They actually have their own payment system within their country. But if you go outside their country, that's the problem. But okay,
no, that's a good point.
For the
that's a key point.
For Russians who were born to sacrifice, and they just are used to it.
Or don't know any better.
They don't know any better. So I could not be. When Jennifer Griffin asks tough questions and says things like, what is going on with the aid? I mean, the president just promised another $800 million. Is it getting across the border? Why is it so slow? And is it intentional? And when you have credible people like Jennifer Griffin, who's just a facts woman, and you have General Jack Keane, who only cares about our national security, and you know that, and he is saying he's hearing that there's a slowdown because there's a fear that they do not want Russia to lose because they're worried about the chaos that would happen. Let's worry about that. That will be a great problem to worry about. Because right now we have the menace of Eastern Europe.
Right. Do you want a standoff or a victory for the Ukrainians?
Well, we had Poroshenko, who's going to be seeing this, the former president, on this weekend show. It's on One Nation, 8 o'clock, and he just says these are the 4 things I need to win. Now, he's helping. There are obviously different parties. But he goes, these are the 4 things we need to win. We absolutely win. These guys can't fight. They don't want to fight. If you could just get me the S-300 systems. He wants tanks. For some reason, we won't give him tanks. I'm not really sure. Do you know Australia is sending their Bush vehicles, which are basically armored people movers? And they say, we're going to send them to you because you asked, but we can only get 3 at a C-117, and I got to go so many miles. Have you asked Europe? Really? So Australia's got to send their people movers to get these people safe. So all this stuff is going on where this is where we usually rein people in, why people kind of resent us. Like America's telling me what to do again. America's nowhere here. We're not telling anybody what to do. There's an organization. Bulgaria said, I'll give my S-300s, but just give me some Patriots. And we go, we'll get back to you.
By the way, ending the imports of Russian oil, that doesn't happen until late June. We're in late March. I know. Seriously. That's several months
we're buying
now.
them today.
So there's nothing. We had not crippled their finances. That's the message of the rising ruble that got me so annoyed when I learned about it. And we have to do much more. We're not doing it, which makes me think that even though Biden, in his more cognitively wakeful moments has said Putin's a war criminal and has said, Putin should not continue as dictator, he doesn't follow through. We have not done our job. The Ukrainians, Brian, are doing their job. Why aren't we doing our job? Why aren't we ending the financing of Putin's war machine?
Well, I know. What you got to do
now, by the way, and evermore. How about this? One more. I think that Biden was right about regime change. I just saw a poll, Rasmussen polls, over 70% of Americans think there should be regime change. Now, how about this? Whatever happens, however the war ends or doesn't end, we shouldn't lift sanctions on Russia, tough sanctions, until Putin is gone. Nobody said that yet. No financing until you throw that bum out. He is a war criminal and he's a crook. How about that?
And true. And now you got to make sure the rest of the G7, the rest of the EU, the rest of NATO agrees with you.
No,
by the way,
I don't need them. I don't care about them. We are so powerful financially, we could take them out by ourselves. Financially, I'm speaking of. Economically, I'm speaking of. I can't stop Germany from buying their oil. I get that.
But I think Germany's on board now. I really do. I think they got their wake-up call. I really think within 5 years, you're going to see less and less. They say the numbers, they're already down 15% of their purchases. We have met with them about getting LNG. And then we find out they're contacting countries. Obviously, last weekend, the finance minister was in the UAE trying to work out a deal for gas directly. So I think Europe sees the emergency. But you know what also it is? We're not telling them. The people are telling them. I think the German people are seeing Zelensky. They're not going through the American lens or the Schrader-Enge or the Merkel lens. People go, no, I'm a little upset by that. I can relate to that hospital being blown up. I see that woman holding a child. That reminds me of me. And that could happen to me. In fact, I've been to the Ukraine. The Europeans can say that. I know what that beautiful city of Odessa is like. That could be us getting shelled today. I do study my history books. I know what the Russians are capable of or what a belligerent leader is capable of on that continent. So I think that there's a wake-up call there. But like you said, people who really care should tighten that circle. We should be hearing from the Department of Justice. We should be hearing from Janet Yellen every day. These are more sanctions and more sanctions. She's invisible.
She is invisible. That's a tragedy. I have one more gripe. I want to take his boat away. He
Take
has
his
a
yacht away.
$700 million boat
Right.
off the coast of Italy. He's been sanctioned. We haven't done a damn thing about his own. Take his boat away.
We identified that about a week ago in Italy. We should take it away, but leave him a Boston whaler. We need some way to get around when he goes to Italy. You don't want to be landlocked in that great nation.
But Katie Pavlich was on set the other day and said if it were Trump, he would not only have taken the boat away, he'd have held a press conference on the boat to announce it and then renamed it.
And every other network would have said, every other network would have said how ridiculous that is that he's doing that. But he's doing it. It's crazy.
All right, Brian Kilmeade, the best of the best. You can catch Brian on Fox & Friends weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern, and One Nation with Brian Kilmeade Saturdays 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And he has a hell of a good radio show, too. Just got to add that in.
When you're on it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.